Hello and welcome back to Maverick Mind, or welcome. If you're brand shiny new to the show, then it's lovely to meet you, lovely to connect with you. And again, amazing to be back behind this microphone once again to share another episode and introduce you to another really, really special human being. Yeah. I think that if you've ever felt the pressure to kind of package yourself in a certain way or polish yourself to prove your worth, then this episode I think is really for you. Today I am joined by Milica Grjic. She is a desire coach and a storyteller who guides mostly women back to their wild, rooted, unapologetic truths. Her work centers around self-love, sensuality, and a very deep somatic reclamation, kind of like reprogramming the parts of us that have learned to seek safety in performance or perfection, or maybe silencing our desires for the acceptance of other people. So she's really guiding us to be most unapologetic in ourselves, but through this kind of really deep and rich and powerful grounding. And it's a really, really special conversation. In this conversation, we explore what it means to create, love, and lead from your body, not from your conditioning. We talk about desire as a compass, softness as strength, and the kind of power that doesn't really need to be shouted to be felt. This is one that's definitely worth remembering, worth listening to again many times. It's one of those conversations that I think that you would learn something brand new every time that you listen, because there was so much richness and depth in this conversation, and I cannot wait for you to hear it. Before I cut to the conversation, Milica, I would love to say thank you again for everybody that kind of has spread the positive vibes since coming back after a little bit of a hiatus. Lovely to be back here with you all again, and excited to share this podcast, excited for all of you jumping into my new online studio, Ember. Well, I say new, it's not even that new, but I've only really just started sharing it a bit wider. And for anyone listening this week or in November, but you can also go back to it if you're not, the theme for all the classes inside my studio, Ember, is clarity this month. So everything, we're exploring clarity from a yogic philosophy perspective, a movement perspective, a meditation perspective, a self-leadership perspective, and a somatic perspective. So there's loads going on, loads of a lot of richness. So if you're feeling a little bit unclear, if you're feeling a little bit stuck, or if you feel like this year's just been quite a lot, like you kind of feel like you've done 10 rounds of Mike Tyson instead of whatever you put on your vision board, then jump in and come and join us in there. I'll leave the link in the show notes for you to join. But let's not dilly-dally anymore. Let's welcome Milica to the show. Milica Grjic, a massive warm welcome to Maverick Mind. Hey Milica, massive welcome to Maverick Mind, the podcast. I'm so excited to have you here.
Hello. I'm really happy to be here. Thank you, Ali.
Awesome. Well, I'd love to kind of paint the picture of who you are, where you come from for the audience, because I know we're curious little beings, this community. But to begin with, I really want to kind of dive straight into the work that you do now and kind of your work within the energies of the body, particularly in loads of different ways. Can you describe maybe a little bit about the center of what you're kind of bringing into the world now?
Yeah. Ooh, it's always a loaded question for me that I try to always simplify in the best way possible. And I really like to call myself a desire and confidence coach. And why I say that, because what I'm tuning into is the energetics of the body, and to discover the inner truth of someone else's powers. And myself being so curious about my own experience of inner powers and inner worlds that are then expressed into the world through a creative force, really got me discovering others. So I often say to my clients is like, it's one to know what you want. It's very different to feel the truth in it. So the invitation is always to work into embodying what the mind desires. And more than anything, just finding if this is truth and understanding the language of the body that speaks differently from the mind. And it's often surprising because it's very subtle and very clear and clean and soft and gentle. It has a very different qualities, the qualities of the humanness, the qualities of the heart, the qualities of the soul almost. It's a very different energetics that I work with. And yeah, there's like underneath the iceberg, there's a huge ocean of universe and possibilities to discover. And yeah, that's usually my area of curiosity and focus for clients.
Yeah, I love that. The reason actually why I asked that question first, and I know that that is a hard question to answer sometimes when your work is quite broad, to sort of summarize it up can be a little bit tricky. But the reason I wanted to start with that is because I've heard, people doing somewhat similar things. I've even had a wonderful lady on this podcast who was a kind of a sexuality coach and worked with Tantra. And I've seen so many people around that kind of go around that route. But the way that you phrase it with like desire first, I find that really interesting because I think that a lot of us almost, what's the word, like gaslight our desires sometimes. So I love that kind of that is the primary route to begin with for you.
Yeah. And thank you for pointing that out. It actually, what's interesting is that it does take usually 1 to 2, sometimes 3 sessions for us to get clear exactly on what that desire is. And then the customization of any type of coaching or any type of present initiation is very much to drive towards that desire. And unless we're very clear together on what we're doing, it will go nowhere. Meaning, if someone is ready for this way of openness inside of the body, and there is a capacity or awareness of the mind to differentiate between mind part and body part, which is often associated with sensations, somatic work, and as you probably your audience is aware as well, unless there's that initiative or almost like a nudge. And I'm curious about this part often because it is the invitation that comes from the center of ourselves. And it's very unexplainable and untangible, but very recognizable. And it comes in waves. It comes as a sudden shock. Oftentimes, we don't know how to process, so we disregard, we suppress. So those are the moments that I catch. Those are the gaps that I am fascinated about because right there, something about you is teasing you, is inviting you, is knocking, and it's very subtle. And this is where we get to very much open up a whole world of unknowns to the mind and reprogram slowly from the bottom up rather than top down approach.
Yeah, love that. What would you say, like, through the people that you've worked with, creatives or not, what are kind of like the main things that you find that, or main reasons that people silence that kind of pull of desire within them?
Yeah. It's as simple as, how do I deal with this? And excuse me, I'll go ahead and kind of dissect this a little bit. When we are approached with any type of resistance, we automatically have a context out of the mind based on the memory or some sort of event that occurred in the past. And it's very subconscious and it operates out of the subconscious, but it reacts through our reality. So we react to it on automatic and often involuntary way. And just that awareness, I think we can't, you know how you probably heard this before too, we can't fast forward our growth or evolution. We actually have to take that step. But taking the step means being in moment, aware of what is happening. And I think when we aim to fast forward or to get to something, we're missing the present moment of what is already occurring in an alchemy of beingness. And when we have the emotion that occurs in the body and we have such a dysregulation in the body, first and foremost is learning how to regulate so we can think clearly and we can also feel clearly. And that is a huge process because often when dysregulated, we suppress and we just leave it for later because we don't have time, right? Life happens. And I often find it if we only knew how to come back to the present moment, it sometimes takes a few minutes, sometimes it takes a longer time, depends on the emotion that we're dealing with, like grief, for example. There's no end. We don't know how long it happens. If we learn the technique of how to come back into the mind, we're slowly building capacity of awareness of what is happening and differentiating when regulated in the body of what can we do. That's a first step, awareness and learning that capacity. The second one, how I deal with it. It's almost like, now what do I do with this grief or this sadness or this brokenheartedness or this loss or lost feeling, purposeless feeling, I don't know what I'm doing, lost. How do I deal with this? And then we discover and we unlayered. That's when the actual work starts with really discovering, what is this? Where is this coming from? Where did you learn it? And is this the truth?
Yeah, definitely. I love that. Thank you so much for such a like clear explanation of that whole process. And I say so often, for every creative person, I think one of the most vital muscles to exercise is the one of patience and presence. Because we live in a society these days that we want everything, including our own growth and expansion, to happen like Amazon Prime, right? We want to
Mhm.
like flip the switch and be grown and, awakened and perfect already. And
Yeah.
it doesn't happen like that. And also, you don't want it to happen like that because you want the change to be gradual, because it has then a chance for the nervous system to kind of catch up. And we actually learn a lot more in that process when it does take a little bit of time. And we need to cultivate this feeling of presence as well, because when we're present, we are receptive to ideas, inspirations, and intuitions like coming through us, I believe, channeling through us. But some people might think that a different thing. Some people might say coming from us, but I'd say channeling through us.
I agree.
Which become these like visionary ideas, I think. And I guess also those intuitions are then little mini guides to the deeper desire beyond that, right?
Mm. You hit the nail in the head. This is exactly how I actually think of it too. And then you play with the energy gifted to you because you're able to receive it. And one thing I'll add too, when the mind works so hard, it cannot stay in a present moment. It actually works in the future and the past. And we know of this where, like a lot of people are becoming aware of it. But when it works there and not here, it takes a lot of energy out of the body. And the moment you become slowly building capacity to become present, which is being here right now with you, that's all I have, your timeline shrinks. And when your timeline shrinks, there's no past and future. You have this abundance of energy to use right now. So your mind actually is not utilizing your energy. It's your energy that it's now becoming almost like available for you to source out something much deeper that your mind can comprehend. And the way you explained it is exactly how I also teach it too, is that there's abundant source of potential in us through which we are able to speak a very different language once we start building this capacity inside. And of course, it doesn't come overnight. It doesn't come fast train. No, it takes a lot of effort and patience and almost like love for it to learn to learn its language, most importantly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it takes quite a lot of dedication, especially in today's society. If you're somebody that like lives in a fast-paced city or something, I would say particularly, because you're bombarded with information and stuff all the time. So to actually take your energy back towards yourself from all of the distractions and all of the, I call it emotional time travel, when your mind's like projected
Nice.
forwards or somewhere way back. Um,
Nice.
to kind of bring your power back here is actually a really difficult thing to do. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. It is vital, but it is definitely in today's fast-paced Amazon Prime world. It takes some devotion to choose that, I think.
Yeah. And I think, and I'll to add to that too, it does, and it's also something that you must be ready for. And that readiness and then time in your life, in your evolution, is not something we can control. And this is where we almost have to learn how to simply be in what we are and deal with what is given to us and find some joy in it, because we can't be anywhere else, anything else other than here right now, who I am. And that's, I think, once we start playing with the paradoxes and dualities of the mind gets so confused that it stops thinking. It's almost like, it laughs. It becomes laughable. And it invites that cosmic joke that we're all talking about. It's actually funny that I'm trying so hard to be elsewhere, but I'm forgetting I'm literally just here being me. And did I, am I me or am I someone else? Like, how can I be anything else other than just me? And for that, I have to find and accept that I'm unique, very valuable. And I have to, so much love for me. I have to find it. Like, I almost have to find me to come back, out of which then I will show up to the world. What a paradox. It's like, it doesn't, it never fails to make me smile and laugh, because it's that simple.
Yeah, absolutely. I always think that's so funny as well, that I think as humans, we overcomplicate things like to the nth degree so much. We find so many ways to complicate the most simple of things. And then the answer is almost always, to every question, the answer is always like right here.
You can't beat it.
Yeah, I love that. So I kind of, to backtrack a little bit, I'd love to kind of, how did you come to kind of find this as your path? Like, what was your path to finding your purpose within desire, I guess?
It's a long path. I traveled on a long
Mm-hmm.
path. And I think there was always something curious inside of me. And I think this was the energy that I was always had the energy of curiosity. I was curious. And I also couldn't handle just one thing at a time. I handled many things: the tasks, the duty, the books. To this day, I read 5 of them at once. But I read it based on how I feel. And I allow that space for me to expand and put the puzzles together. Because it doesn't feel right to complete the book if I don't tune into it and I don't find it stimulating, not only for my mind, but also for, am I learning something? Am I evolving? So it took me years to cultivate the curiosity. And it was just this one moment in life where I would go home and I would had such a high expectations for everybody else other than myself. And I never felt seen, or almost like you actually never cared about my story. Was always some feedback that I would get out of the mind. And in reality, I knew that wasn't true. I just didn't know how to make a different story out of it. And suddenly, out of blue, I just had this synchronization of events that occurred. I met a woman who gave me access to this app, never saw her again. In this app, I just started watching. And I remember that was 10 years ago. And my first woman mentor, actually, that I learned a lot of these like vortex of the 5D world or whatever that I entered into, was Regina Meredith. She was a journalist. And she just had this simple energy, and she just spoke different information, and different information about the gods, about the who created the world, the species. And I was just so curious that I entered into it, from one book to another, from one school to another, from one retreat to another. And I just relaxed into allowing things to show me without questioning so much, until I realized that every time I question, I bite my tongue and I make a wrong turn. Rather than, if I'm allowing myself to flow with what is gifted to me in life, I will be able to tune into different energies and then discover myself. So the cognition and understanding of myself as a unique person came by allowing things to happen and me not questioning them. And this is very hard to do. And it's also hard to do if you are not adaptable to the change. So if you want a steady, concrete, almost predictable life, then it will be very hard to allow yourself to flow through life. But if you're learning how to be comfortable with discomfort of unknown, then things change. Life does change. a lot. And if the more and more the time has gone by, I was actually more and more comfortable. So I had been to the schools of sexual tantra way of relating into the body. I experienced a lot of yang energy and a lot of masculine energy, extroverted energy. And then when that was completed to me, I went inside in yin to balance and to understand inner worlds of everything. So to this day, I don't stop learning. Exact same thing of how do I find myself being creative force to create and wake up every morning with such a force throbbing through my body if I don't understand what this is all about. So I'm at the stage where I'm all about inside, exploring the outside. I'm all about what I am available and have available inside. I have available to give to the world too, to anybody who I relate to. I hope that answered your
Well,
question. I kind
I
of
think so.
vastly explained it.
I think so, yeah. Going kind of way back to what he said at the beginning there, because I think a lot of people will really resonate with that feeling, or people listening anyway, this community will resonate with that feeling of maybe not feeling fully seen, but also not really knowing what is missing. Like a lot of us, we feel a little bit misunderstood, or maybe like the aliens of the world. Because I think when you're quite a visionary human being, you see the world in a different way, and maybe your mind works slightly different to other people. And that is why we're here, to like have those visions and see things differently, to create something new, or just to create something beautiful, to channel our experiences into something really cool. When you had that feeling, or you have that memory of having that feeling, was that from childhood? Was that you didn't feel fully seen by your parents, or was it just like people at school, or was it everyone? Do you remember?
Oh, yes. I pulled out all these children of mine from the past over and over again. And yeah, that had a lot to do with the childhood too. I was raised by a single mom who wasn't there. I almost had a total solidarity in a lot of things. I prematurely became mature prematurely. I was making the decisions going alone. So it was everything in childhood is almost going to determine our life until you start questioning why. And that big question of why comes when you are ready for it, and it cannot be forced. You simply cannot see. So my experience was very much, okay, I am suffering for whatever reason. Look how much love I have. Why am I in pain? And that moment I remember it vividly. It was in the airplane when I just ask myself, rather than asking them, all my focus for some reason actually moved inner, and I was talking to myself. And I first time met me and I asked myself, why am I feeling like this? And then suddenly all that attention came towards me. Synchronicities started happening. And I just started opening up. And it was that simple. I don't drink, I don't use any drugs, any type of synthetic initiation, or anything that will actually stimulate my brain to think differently. It was just an awareness. Where is that coming from? I don't know. Where did that come from? I don't know. I simply don't know. I think I was able at that moment to just surrender. And I will just add one more thing too. The surrendering to what is the hardest thing to do. That's why we try so many techniques. We try meditation, yoga, we try vipassana, we tried ayahuasca, we tried so many things until none of them work. And when none of it works, and I often say, when everything and anything doesn't work in this world, you have no other way, no other option than to surrender. When you try everything and nothing works, you actually stop trying. And I think in
Yeah,
that
for
right moment,
sure.
I stopped trying and I came to right back in here.
Yeah, I mean, I guess kind of maybe that chain of thought was allowed to happen because, although maybe it's not ideal, you had spent so long on your own and thinking for yourself, I suppose. Whereas that is something that often a lot of people avoid at all costs, that solitude. But I really think that sometimes we need it because it allows quietness, and we can actually hear our own self, and maybe hear that intuition, or whatever anyone wants to call it. That's what I call it, to kind of speak from within. And maybe that was that little question came from, of like, hang on, wait a minute. Why am I
Yeah.
feeling like this when life is actually like this, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I also like to challenge a lot of, you know, how we say law of attraction, law of manifestation. What about law of randomness? Sometimes that can happen too. And we really, we have to have this inner trust in higher powers than our mind. You have to be out of your mind to trust something you can't see and touch. That to us here means you got to be cuckoo and crazy a little bit. But really, the moment you get out of your mind is you have nowhere else to go than to simply surrender and trust that something is bigger than you, than your separate self here. And like you said, the solitude, it's so terrifying for a lot of people because you have nothing else to do other than to face yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And that's really uncomfortable for a lot of people. In fact, like I've been teaching meditation for a long time now. And that's probably the number one thing people say to me as to why they feel like they don't want to meditate. Like, oh no, I don't want to do that. It's either because either number one, I can't sit still that long, or when I say you could do a minute and a half if you want to. Don't know why there's a thumbs up there.
Yeah.
Or it's I don't want to see what's there. People say,
Hmm.
and it's kind of like, well, that's like very clear that you should see what's there. Then if that is the first reaction of, oh, I don't want to know, then that's usually a feeling that you should probably know what's there,
Hmm.
when you're
And
ready.
and I often ask, but why wouldn't you want to know? See, because I don't know what to do with it. And that's where it comes. It's like if we only knew how to deal with it, which is how you can actually regulate back, what are the techniques you can regulate your body to think rationally, to relax so you can feel while I'm here holding you. I think this will be a huge, not only a problem, but also a huge solution for people that are able to hold each other while diving in deep. Because it takes that one long minute step, and then the next one is another step and another step of actually self exploration. And a lot of us think it's very scary, but rather than it's easier. It is easier when you know what to do, and it's much easier when you have someone holding you.
Yes, definitely. It's a lot easier when you have somebody that you really trust and is also like impartial from the rest of your life, I find, to hold that process and to be with you in a really non-judgmental, anything goes kind of a way. And I think that's the power of whatever you want to choose to do, coaching, therapy, whatever else. I think definitely. And you can do the other things like you said, like the ayahuasca or whatever, but I think that sometimes those things don't work when they come from a place of fixing. When you want to
Yeah.
fix, you can't surrender.
Hmm. Yeah. When you want to fix, you cannot surrender. Yeah. Because you want to control what is
Mm.
uncontrollable. And it's so dangerous because it's very powerful and we're aware that we have a lot of power. I think just the thought that there's this inner knowing, inner calm compass, I call it, that almost like we are actually aware. It's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of time when you're ready to kind of taste it a little bit. And you will be surprised because it comes in shock. It comes in shocking. And what's shocking? Truth. And the truth is makes you speechless. There's nothing else to say. It's unbendable. It's undeniable. So when you find someone who you trust, you first need to learn how you trust yourself. And then you will tune into someone else's energy to see this energy can sustain my vastness. That's where that being seen, validated, and trusty comes in play without actual comprehension of how or making sense at all. It's nonsensical. It's you just tune into someone's energy and tune into someone's capacity to hold due to your vastness. So I don't sell my coaching packages. For the matter of fact, I tell people you have to tune into it if I'm right person for you. And I trust that more because then I know you own your power and you're aware of your powers. Otherwise, I cannot tell you, this is not my power, it is yours. And I want you to be aware of it so much that you can actually find the right person to go and explore that vastness of yours together without especially without another person taking your power away from you. That's a big no. So that's where we get a little confused on whose power is it? It's all yours, and it's all about you to keep it and to find it.
Yeah, definitely. I think that comes from like another layer of surrender, because then you're surrendering into or trusting that the right people will be a match for you. And that's something that I say to a lot of creatives that, because, well, I'd say almost 100% of creatives that struggle with selling their work, um, because it feels really deeply personal. And I just feel like if you kind of give that level of surrender, you can put it out there for sure. Like, don't just hide it in a cupboard, but put it out there and trust the right people will find it.
Yeah,
And
and
then you don't need to sell.
exactly. And what is it that you're selling? Pain or pleasure?
Yeah, exactly. And for creatives, I'd say a lot, it's basically always pleasure.
And why, I'm curious, why do you think the sales are not going? Because of the authenticity behind it?
No, I'd say most people that I work with, they struggle with selling because it feels like they have layers to it. It can be because they have a subconscious belief that it's like they shouldn't be selling something. They could have a subconscious belief that people don't want what they want to sell. But for most of them, they just feel uncomfortable in that, like, buying. But because when you create something, whether it's a piece of music, piece of art, a sculpture, a painting, whatever else, it's a lot of yourself has gone into it. It's kind of like having a baby. It's birthing an experience that you've had and something that you put a lot of time and a lot of love into. And then they can feel vulnerable if somebody says that they don't want it, because it's like a personal attack. Or it can be they just don't want to come off like a salesman because it feels icky, for
Yeah.
want of a better word. Right. Right. But I think that when we create something from our experience, and it really comes from, I think the best artwork comes from presence, like being really with what you're creating and playful with what you're creating and not taking it so too seriously, but allowing whatever is authentically there to be expressed outward into whatever you're doing, paint, sculpture, design, which is my background. Then once it's done, it's not yours anymore, because we grow actually through the process of creating something. So we're not the same person at point A when the canvas is blank to who we are at the end. So when you're trying to quote unquote sell it to someone, it's actually, you want them to see themselves in it. And they are maybe at point A, they are at a blank canvas stage, and you want them to see your taste or your experience and feel seen by you through your work. And when somebody makes that connection, so long as they have the cash, they're not going to say no.
Mm. I love that. And because, I was finishing your sentences as you were talking, because I was like, we're so tuned in together into the same field. So it almost feels like you're absolutely right. The moment an artist completes and feels completed is the moment it is no longer theirs. And I think when, and this is where I start to question it, right? And I like to be curious about, but what is it that is making me want to buy it? Is it the artist or is it the piece? Is it the book? Is it the teaching? Or is it who wrote it? What is it exactly? And I think there's a specific transmission that occurs even through the words, not sound, not picture, not visual. But I think when you are ready and you understand these initiatives or initiations inside the body, they come in waves of inspiration. You pass, you become manic a little bit, right? So it's almost like there's a flow of energy inside of you, and it's momentum. It's the idea. Elizabeth Gilbert likes to talk about it as the idea that just showed up to you. And if you're not caring and playing and dancing with it, it's going to go someplace else. I like to think of it as love too. Love, eros, life. Because what makes you want to love again? What makes you feel such a magic that your wings, you fly, you can move the mountains. You literally have this superpowers that suddenly come into you as, you know how we say love is blind. It's not blind, it's magical because it shows you your superpowers that you now need to know what to do with. And they're endless, they're abundant. So artist says goodbye to the completion of it because there's more. There's more for everything. There's enough for everyone. And he goes on and on and on and on. So I totally understand what you're saying because I feel it. And I've felt it over and over again. And I almost like get in a freeze, like, okay, it's here. What do I do with this? Right. So I almost like respect it so much when it shows up randomly like that. Because I don't initiate it. I don't rely on it. I don't invite it. I'm open for it. Come up, come to me.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm sure everyone listening will totally resonate with that idea of like when you have a good idea comes, it almost like fills your whole body. You're like, ding, ding, ding. That's it, you know? And then you
Totally.
have to, then you are a bit like, oh, I don't know what to do now. And I totally agree with that Liz Gilbert idea that sometimes then if you let it stagnate for too long, it will just go on and then you will see someone else do it. It's happened in my life more than one time.
Yeah, and say these are these energies that are unexplainable. I think they're a gift to us to play with and dance with and learn because they have very different language. And I will come back to love the same way, or any type of life force or creative force of energy, or just like force, just this like pulsating thing that comes to show you your uniqueness. Nobody starts the canvas. You actually don't have the ending. Like Mona Lisa was repainted 77 different times. I don't know how many times, right? And it became something different. So you almost don't have the end goal. But what you do have is this momentum that comes in and it pulsates through you that you are just hopping onto surf. And as long as your energy is concentrated around it, then you're going with the flow of it. You no longer ask yourself, you are no longer you. You are the energy. You become the energy, you feel it, you breathe it, you go with it. And that's a so much leisure almost to allow yourself time to flow with the energy and allow it to show you what it wants to show through you. Same with love too. Nobody hops on the train just so that we can end it. We don't
No.
do that. But
That's so true.
something is driving us. Something is pulsating through us, and that's where we we have roomies in the end. But that's for another talk. I mean, we can go deeper in it too.
Yeah, absolutely. And like people listening will know my answer to this, but I'm keen and curious to know your answer. To kind of be with that pulsating energy or kind of maintain the flow of it and kind of not have so much stagnation within our creativity or with just our pranic energy, whatever you want to call it, life force. What are some like actionable things that you guide your clients through to kind of maintain connection with that?
Yeah, you have to have time and space for it, even if it's 10 minutes. And you have to do it so much so that your nervous system learns how to drop in it. I have a chair, I have a time, I have a morning, and often I wake up at 5 every morning, sometimes at 4, and I just sit in silence. But as uncomfortable as it got, so many times over and over, my system learned how to do this. So now in this corner, at this hour, this is what I do. I open the book and I just sit with the book sometimes and I just learn how to sit with myself. I think the time and space and dedication to you is so important and it starts from there. And simply it can be 5 minutes or 10 minutes of it. And listen and almost observe yourself. Learn. Are you thinking too much? Are you panicking? Is your heart rate faster? Are you in fear? And start recognizing where in the body do you feel them and what is it. Can you go underneath it? Can you go underneath it? This is such a almost genuine and a long, long process to learn, but it only gets deeper and deeper. So same thing as going to the gym or I don't know, learning to go to piano. You have to keep coming back to it, and you have to really almost like wanting we People say we don't meditate because we want to get enlightened. You meditate because you can't stand your life anymore. You have to do something about it. So unfortunately, it always takes crisis oftentimes for us to actually get to that point. But if you start small and if you allocate that time for yourself and then the world, your world is going to change the way you approach yourself. And I would highly recommend do it in a time when everybody is sleeping if you can't wake up early, because it's so pure. It's the purest energy. You're just out of who knows what world, came back, and you're so not programmed to start the day, to get very loud and noise. You're actually sitting in the silence. And if it takes 5 minutes, just do it and see. Do it for some time, do it for a month and see what changes in you.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, I love that. But that I think fit it in like whenever in the day that you can. But there is something really special about that before everyone else wakes up time. I think I can't remember the exact time frame. I think it's like between 4 and 7 a.m. I think. Um, this is within yogic philosophy and Ayurvedic philosophy is seen as the most kind of special time of day because it's when our bodies are the most receptive and actually the most creative at that time of day, most of us anyway. I'm not
I'll just give a
saying
little.
guys listening that I do that every day.
I'll just say I have a list of books, and they're all from Renaissance. Majority of them are performance artists and Renaissance here at the time. And when I was studying Salvador Dali, he had this method that I don't know if you know, maybe I'll take a couple minutes just to explain. I think this is beautiful. And what I loved about it, because he was out of his mind crazy. When you look at his pictures, everything is bended and blended, and everything doesn't have a spot. Nothing is logical. It's all dreamy, and it's all whole completely different world. And he had this method that all other artists actually took over after him. And he would sleep with the spoon on his chest. And as he would zone out and a spoon will fall off his chest, it would wake him up. He would jump out of the bed and start painting, because he was so pure in whatever form he was during the sleep that he was immediately actually putting that on the paper. And it was so fascinating because your mind is not bombarded by all this noise in the morning. And I found that like out of mind crazy, correct? So this is where it becomes very funny. And when you wake up in the morning and you're fresh day, there's purity in your mind, purity in your soul and heart and energy in your body. And when you inhale awake, right? When you inhale awake, your day is totally different from just an hour later. So that's the purity of you that comes in. And often, it can come in any form, in writing and singing and simply just being, listening to classical music, listening to something that can set you up, to stimulate your brain to be grounded and regulated so you can take on the vastness of the day in a regulated state rather than frantic dysregulation.
Yeah, definitely. And I think like it's great to begin the day regulated because then we have something to come back to. I saw something that's like wherever your mind gets dopamine from first in the morning is where you will seek it from the rest of the day. So you can get that from listening within yourself, really, or moving your body. But or you can wake up and scroll your phone, and then that's where your mind will seek it from for the rest of the day. So then you're kind of you're a slave to the noise of the world, really, if that is the habit that you have.
Yeah. And that world is just becoming more and more automated.
Mm.
So we will burst. We can't think that fast. We have to slow down. It's like our brain cannot fire and wire that fast. Like everything else is on us, and you lose the balance. It's very hard to balance yourself when we are so trying to fire in a frantic, manic, almost manic mode. So silence in my space is the only time, in my experience, is the only time that I can actually meet myself and
Yes,
learn about
definitely.
myself. Like, what bothers me? What is going on? Like, what? just simply ask myself some questions and have a coffee with myself.
Yeah, what bothers me? What's going on? Why am I reacting like this? Why am I triggered to that? Why do I have this habit? Again, it's just kind of, I guess, being curious and non-judgmental, allowing yourself to be that judgment-free zone, which I think is quite hard to cultivate, but really powerful when you do.
Yeah, and I'll add to that too. It's like, do you know why we judge? Have you ever wondered why we judge ourselves?
There's many reasons why we judge ourselves, but I'll let you go
Yeah,
with yours.
many. Comparison. We set high goals that we will never achieve. We're almost like we're out there. Often judgment comes because we're out there. And when we come back here inside, we start learning values and valuables like this self-worth and confidence, which is we're talking about the confidence. Like, how do I know that I'm confident? You know that you're confident because somehow you discover that your worth is valuable. Like, you are valuable to be here. And you're valuable because what you are and what you speak and are becoming or you are has, it's not coincidental. There must be a reason why I'm here, right? Another question, but why am I here? Okay, there must be a reason why. Okay, I'm good at this. I'm not good at this. Is this me or is this me? When am I not good? When I compare with others or when I'm in my truth? And this is how you start like slowly dissecting yourself, almost doing a surgical intervention to understand when is this popping up and why am I, what is the differentiation? I'll give another example. When I first started doing Vipassana, you heard of meditation, Vipassana. Very hard because there's nowhere else to go. And often, if you're in a desert, you only have yourself. And it is torture for many people to sit and not react rather than just observe. Just simply notice and observe and sit in a long hour, not moving your body, not doing anything, just breathing. It's a torture. But I realized my first time when I sat in Vipassana that my awareness was out there. I was always aware elsewhere. I was always looking at myself there in front of me, sitting and meditating and doing all this breath work. And suddenly, the more I was aware of that, the more I came back closer to myself. And suddenly, I became me, and as if I just sat inside of my body, and my perspective was from here on. And it was shocking. I was actually so confused that I am now speaking out of me. And that changed everything. Where is your
That's
awareness? Right?
Yeah, that's really powerful to have that kind of, well, how would I describe it? Visual realization. To have that, because I guess that's something that we all do, but maybe you don't see it in that clearer picture to realize that that's what we're doing. Who is speaking right now? Is it me who's speaking? Or am I projecting a belief from somebody else that I don't remember has told me one time and I'm just speaking it out, you know?
Yeah. Because really, you are the center of your universe. If you turn around, the center is actually where you stand for your perception, for your perceiving, for your perspective. There's no other center. But the mind is so tricky that it makes you want to go there because it cannot stay in the now and the here. Space and time, it needs time and space to exist. It cannot exist here in this moment. So the center, and when you really just zoom out, again, it's not you, but when we sit here, everything around us revolves, everything moves around us other than us. We're center where this is that separate self. This is that self image, me as I am, ego, and all these things come out of, right? So the projection of self, how we perceive the entire world around us, that it's just moving, is the center. And it's so mind boggling because mind gets confused when you start questioning it. And it will do
Yeah.
anything in its power to tell you what to do. And if it becomes so aggressive, it will suppress you and guide you, right? If because it can be very aggressive, it can actually be brutal. When I sat in Vipassana, I thought I was like, oh my God, I'm crazy. My mind is nuts. Talks a lot. And he has a lot of these things going on. It's like, but I'm not even aware of my voice. It's
Yeah,
beautiful, deep,
definitely.
deep process. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that also what's really powerful is when you've been practicing, it could be meditation, but honestly, it could be affirmation, it could be any kind of self-awareness building thing, because I found meditation hugely uncomfortable, like too uncomfortable to sit there when I first started. I had to exhaust my body to be able to sit still. So I had to do really hard yoga practice to be able to sit still. So I think some people, it really depends on whatever you're doing to help see your mind. It could be journaling or whatever else. But when it actually becomes awareness, becomes like something that you live, not only where you are on a yoga mat or on a meditation cushion or when you're journaling or something, but something when you're making a cup of tea, you suddenly realize some thought that's coming into your mind, and you're just like kind of have that moment where you're able to snap out of it, and you're kind of just like, wow, that was really mean that I just said
Yeah.
that to myself. Like,
Yeah.
whoa, but calm down there. Let's be a little bit nicer in this moment. Like what that's I think the most powerful thing that happens from integrating whatever works for you into your life.
Yeah. And it comes to that awareness that you were talking about. Oh my God, like, damn, am I brutal? And when you really follow your thoughts, there's a start and end, start and end. There's never a gap in between. It just goes on and on and on and on and on and on, and it never is a gap. But if you start noticing, if you can create a gap or if gap occurs in between, that's your chance. That's how I think of it as I imagine it to be the door to the magic. The door
Mm.
that you can enter because right there in that gap is a space you can enter unless
Mm.
you have a technique which shuts down the mind completely and not suppresses it. It's rather than just teaches it how to slow
Yeah,
down and
definitely.
silence. Yeah.
Yeah, and teaches you to how to watch what's happening in your mind rather than necessarily being the main character in there.
Yeah. It's so much.
Yeah.
We are such a vast universe, just this body to
Oh,
explore. It's like,
definitely.
when do I have time to go out there? It's like, it's here. Everything is here. It's so much to learn.
So much to learn. Yeah. Wow. I think we could talk for days and days. But
True.
I want to kind of wrap up this conversation with two questions that I ask everybody.
Mhm.
And the first one kind of comes, I guess, from it ties back to something you already said in this conversation, kind of where you were feeling maybe slightly misunderstood. And as I said, a lot of us, I think, do feel that way. On this question, I like to help people feel seen in that a little bit. What is could be to do with who you are, it could be to do with your work, but what do you think is one like common misconception people have about you, again, about your work or just about you?
Hmm. That I'm too dreamy.
Too dreamy.
Oh, yes. That I'm too out there.
I resonate with that. um, And the second one is if you can go back to like a really memorable conversation that you've had with somebody. It could be again about creativity, it could be about your work, or it could just be somebody in your life that you had a conversation that you really remember. What is like one line from that conversation? It could be just something that somebody said or an actual piece of advice that they gave you in that moment that's really kind of stuck with you through your life.
I love your questions. Oh, I'm usually the one asking them. That's why it's like, oh, okay. Mm. Um, that I am yet to open the door of the universal vastness and which caused a total domino effect of me rethinking what this is and expecting. So when someone sees the beauty and vastness in you, and you are not ready to see it, it will shock your system. And I often contemplated about it, and it's the seed in my mind that I'm yet to open. And of course, I don't know when and what this is, but I took the whole story and shook my entire system with it. And it took a lot of effort to calm it down for years. And I think it caused me to find some truth in it that was deeply seated in my heart that I was not ready to actually accept by myself. Really
Wow. Yeah.
profoundly deep. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big, deep thing. But I think that that applies to a lot of things. When you can't see your own vastness, it is really uncomfortable when somebody else can see it.
Yeah.
Or kind of tells you what's really there, and you're like, no, I know myself, and you're like, no, honey, you don't.
Yeah.
Awesome. I love that. Well, Milica, thank you
Yeah.
so much for coming on to Maverick Mind. It's been such an absolute pleasure to have you here. Such a great conversation. Everyone listening, I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, then share it everywhere that you want to share it. Share it with a friend. Share it on your social media. If you do, obviously tag us. I'll leave the links below for everyone to find you. But if anyone is ready to find you right now, where's the best place for people to find you and your work and your magic?
I have my website, www.themilicagrjic.com. I'm on Instagram with the same nickname. I have my Spotify, and I am on Substack as well, writing these dreamy stories of potentials in us. And you'll be able to find all my offerings on any of these social medias, actually.
Awesome. Well, I'll leave all that below. But otherwise, thank you everybody for listening. I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you again next time. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Maverick Mind. I hope that you've loved it, and if you have, I would appreciate it so much if you would subscribe and write a 5-star review on wherever you're listening to this podcast from. If you'd like to keep the conversation going, I invite you to join me over on Instagram at maverickmindco or on my website maverickmind.elliefoden.com. And I'll see you in another podcast very, very soon.